Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So I'm going to talk to you today about a condition called PMDD. So PMDD stands for premenstrual dysphoric disorder. PMDD it's not massively common, well known. Doctors, I feel in my experience particularly, are quite reluctant to give you it as a diagnosis. A lot of people know it's sort of partner in crime, maybe, as they could describe it, as PMS, PMT, premenstrual tension, premenstrual syndrome. That's what doctors will tend to sort of diagnose you with. But PMDD it's just another galaxy away from PMS. It's a very severe condition. It's a condition that affects your mood. It's a condition that affects your whole body. It has lots of physical symptoms, lots of emotional, mental health symptoms, and it's something that I suffered with for quite a long time. Now, my journey with PMDD probably started, I think, after the birth of my youngest child, who's now 6. I think now looking back, I probably had a little bit of undiagnosed PMD, postnatal depression. And that's when I first started to find that, these walls were closing in. Though I was going through this monthly cycle, and there were literally becoming days in that cycle where I started to feel normal, okay, well, within that month. And I think that's the first time that I started to go and talk to my GP about it and saying, look, I really can't cope with these symptoms every month. I'm having massive, huge mood swings. My mood is either so low that it's in my boots, or I almost feel a little bit hyper. It did cross my mind of maybe am I bipolar? Is it something like that? But keep having to keep going back to the GP, not really getting anywhere. Trying things like antidepressants. I first tried one called citalopram, tried various different doses of that didn't really do very much. Tried various contraceptives, so I tried the progesterone only pill, the combined pill, tried a Mirena coil. Everything seemed to either not work at all and either make it worse, or maybe have a little bit of an effect at the beginning, which was probably placebo effect, maybe me hoping that whatever I was starting on now was going to work, because I was feeling so unwell. But in the end, nothing really worked, and this condition just seemed to get worse and worse progressively every month. So, symptoms I was struggling with were things like mood swings, migraine headaches, absolutely no energy whatsoever. Even I could have been in bed for 24 hours of sleep and I still wouldn't have any energy. I would still feel like crap. I would literally physically ache from head to toe. I would have aches and pains in all of my joints, really sore knees, sore hips, a sore shoulder. Just physically felt like crap all the time. Just exhausted, continuously exhausted, to the point where you would feel nauseous and feel like vomiting. Just feeling foggy, really just physically feeling horrible, not having the energy to do anything, not having the interest to do anything, because you were so tired all the time, not having that energy, that interest in anything. You were literally just had the energy to concentrate on dragging yourself through the day, and that's what it felt like, dragging yourself through the day. Just the best time of the day being bedtime, because you could go to sleep and go to bed. The only time when you maybe felt a little bit up would be around the time when you'd be ovulating. So for me, that was fairly early on in the cycle. That was within that sort of 10 to 14 days of having a bleed. I used to bleed really heavily for 7-8 days. Used to lose big clots, flood through my clothes, which used to be a nightmare if I was at work. Or you'd feel so restricted, like you couldn't really go anywhere. Although I did eventually find some medication that did help with that, which was called tranexamic acid, and I believe you now can get that over the counter. So that is one thing to try if you've got really heavy bleeding. But yeah, I used to lose big clots. Oh, it just used to feel so disgusting and horrible. But the best thing about it was that when your period started, your mood would lift a little bit. It was like somebody flicking a switch. As soon as you started to bleed, I used to know in my head that I'd started to bleed before I felt anything in my underwear department. Because there would just be that sudden click of a switch, and your head would think, oh, actually, I feel all right again. I feel okay. And you would sort of almost go into an almost bit of a manic mode when you were coming up to ovulating. My head would feel really buzzy. I would have a little bit more energy than normal. And that would be the couple of days in the month where I felt all right and where I felt great. But then, bang, one day you would wake up and you think, oh my God, it's back. It's back. The black cloud is back. Here we go. Again, this could be another 3 weeks of feeling like this. You just basically can't cope with life. Crying fits. Usually, as a person, it takes quite a lot to make me cry, I think. But anything and everything, you just can't cope with anything. You cannot cope with life. And how can you carry on like that when you're a mum? I'm a mum of 3 children. When you need to work. How can you live? You're not living. You're not living at all with this condition. So something had to be done. So I begged my GP to refer me to a gynecologist. So eventually gets referred. I have to wait, obviously, because you're not an emergency appointment or anything. So I had to wait for quite a while to actually go and see the gynecologist. Lots and lots of visits going back and forth. Try this, try that, try the other. I tried alternative therapies like reflexology, hypnotherapy. All had limited effects. I think reflexology was probably the one that worked the best. And surprise, surprise, the reflexologist could feel that there were problems within that ovary, uterus, hormonal area on the foot. That was very therapeutic. Had the reflexology benefits, but also I think probably had some sort of counselling benefits as well, really, because you were talking to the reflexologist as you were having your therapy, and it was very relaxing. And I must say that really did help me in the last few months prior to having my surgery. So lots and lots of visits back and forth to the gynecologist. I tried a Mirena coil, which for bleeding worked absolutely fantastically. For mood, it did absolutely nothing. In fact, if anything, I think it actually made me worse. So I tried that. And then finally, they agreed to try me on a drug called Zoladex. Now, Zoladex, I was told, would switch my ovaries off. It doesn't. It actually just masks the effects of the ovaries. And at the beginning, it was blissful. It was absolutely amazing. I could tell that my ovaries weren't, having that effect that they normally have. And I felt well for the first time in forever. I felt well. I had energy. I didn't have any of the symptoms at all, apart from some aches and pains in my joints. So this is quite a big. It's a little implant, but it's in quite a big injection. And you actually have it injected into your abdomen every 28 days. So that was quite difficult to keep up with because my GP receptionist certainly didn't seem to understand that this had to be done directly on the 28 days. And it was quite a fight to get the appointments, which added to the stress, really, of having the injections. You, of course, had to go and pick the prescription up yourself and get the injection from the chemist to take with you to your appointment. So it was quite stressful to be on it. They did advise me to take a little bit for HRT at the same time. I wasn't overly keen on taking HRT at the time, so I didn't actually stick to taking it for all of the time that I was on the Zoladex. So I was on the Zoladex injections for about 12 months. Then I decided to give my body a little bit of a rest because I felt like the effects were actually starting to wear off. I was starting to get a lot of breakthrough symptoms. So basically my PMDD symptoms were coming back. So I decided to have a little bit of a break from the Zoladex, then went on an absolute ski slope down even further to feeling unwell. All my symptoms were magnified. I seemed to develop new symptoms. I just was having no life at all whatsoever. So kept going back again and again to the gynecologist, and eventually, thankfully, they agreed to refer me to the surgeons. So again, lots more waiting, having to go and see the surgeon. Because I am only 36, the surgeon wasn't massively overly happy to do the surgery that I needed, which is actually oophrectomy, which is removal of your ovaries, because it is the ovaries that are causing the problem. Wasn't massively happy to do it because I am only 36. I mean, from a childbearing point of view, my family is complete. I've got 3 children. We had no intention of having any more. So for me, that wasn't a problem. The problems he was worried about were the things, there are things that your ovaries do, like they protect your heart, protect you from heart disease, osteoporosis, and all those kind of things. But to be honest, I was at the point where if you don't do this operation, I'm going to end up harming myself. I'm going to end up hurting myself. I might, I'm going to end up being at that point where I'm so low where I can't see a way out, and I'm going to end up doing something to harm myself. And I'm just having no life at all. And thankfully, the lovely gynecologist took pity on me and decided that he would list me for this surgery. So I was like, yes, finally, hooray! Obviously quite nervous because when you have oophrectomy, they also take your uterus as well. I mean, not that I was planning to do anything with it, but obviously that made the surgery seem bigger in my head, and obviously physically is bigger as well. So I did have a hysterectomy as well. My cervix is also gone. Basically they took everything. So I had it done laparoscopically, and they actually take everything out vaginally, which to be honest, I couldn't tell that they'd done anything down there, which is amazing. Obviously very nervous before I went to have my surgery. I'd only ever had one operation before I'd had my gallbladder removed. Interestingly, there are links between problems with your gallbladder and problems with your hormones. Surprise, surprise. So I'd only had that one operation as day surgery a couple of years before. So I was quite nervous, especially when I went for my pre-op assessment and saw the nurse putting a massive tick in there, yes, for major surgery box. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, I was really nervous, and because I also have a condition called von Willebrand's disease, I actually had to be admitted to the hospital in the morning, even though my surgery wasn't planned for the afternoon. So I did loads of sitting around that morning, having to have bloods taken, having to have an IV put in for some factor 8 before I went down to theatre. So I had a very long, drawn-out morning. Obviously very hungry, very thirsty because I've not had anything to eat since about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I really could have just done with a nice cup of tea. But obviously you've got to be starved for your general anaesthetic. But yeah, very long morning. There were a couple of times where I thought, I want to go home. I could have got up and run out and felt quite tearful. But obviously that's quite normal before you have any operation, I would have thought of. That's quite normal. We're going into hospital, we're putting ourselves into the care of other people, we're going to be asleep while they're doing it. What made it slightly worse is that I used to be a nurse, so I know exactly what they were going to do to me in theatre. I know exactly what position I was going to be in, which isn't very dignified. I also know some of the people who were going to be around in theatre. I know the consultant because he knows my partner. So yeah, it all felt a bit, just put me to sleep. Just put me to sleep so I don't know anything about it. So I'm not quite sure how long I was actually in theatre for. The surgery all went absolutely brilliantly well. No extra bleeding because I'd had the factor 8 beforehand. And woke up in recovery with, I remember asking the surgeon, have you got them? Have you got my ovaries out? And he said, yes, it's fine. Here's the photos to prove it. And bless him, he'd done what I asked him to and taken me some pictures. So he'd taken me a before picture. My ovaries were an absolute mess. I had polycystic ovaries, which I wasn't aware of, which actually explains a lot. Like my skin, isn't looking great today, but which is just typical. For the last few months, it's been absolutely beautiful, clear as anything. And as soon as I go and meet my hero last night, I had to have a breakout of spots, which is just typical. But I did used to get horrendous cystic acne mainly on my chin, which is hormonal. And also a sign of polycystic ovaries. But yeah, they were an absolute mess. They were completely covered in cysts. They should have been quite shrunken because I'd been on the Zoladex injections. They weren't. They were quite swollen, and they were a bloody mess, to be honest. My tubes were quite scarred, quite twisted. I had endometriosis, which I didn't know I had, because I didn't particularly experience painful periods, particularly, not a lot of the time heavy periods, but not particularly painful. But I was maybe so euphoric because my mood had lifted. I maybe didn't notice that they were uncomfortable. I don't know, I can't remember. But yeah, there was some endometriosis in there. We were rocking some polyps in there as well, precancerous polyps. Nice big erosion on my cervix. It was all going on in there. I am so glad that I pushed and pushed for that surgery, because if I'd have left things, who knows what I could have ended up with. I could have ended up with uterine cancer. My ovaries weren't looking clever. I could have ended up with massive cysts that needed, that were becoming painful, that needed to be removed. I'm so glad that I pushed to have this surgery done. But the main reason I'm glad I had it done is because I feel so amazingly different. The difference is absolutely, it's just a different world now. I am now I had my surgery on 4th of November last year, 2015. We're now on the 16th of March 2016, so, 4 months on, and I feel absolutely amazing. I can honestly say, for anybody who's worried about having this surgery, from a pain relief point of view, I can honestly say that I was not in any pain at any point during this recovery process. From the minute I woke up in recovery, just till now, I have not had any pain at all. The pain management team at my hospital were absolutely amazing. I started off on a syringe driver of diamorphine. I know that they are starting to give people epidurals as well, as an extra pain relief for when you come out of surgery, but I couldn't have that because I've got von Willebrand's disease, and putting anything into that epidural space is just a no-no, because you could end up being paralysed. So I just had a syringe driver up of diamorphine, which is absolutely amazing. Then stepped down to, that came down the day after, that came down at the same time that my catheter came out. That was absolutely fine. Couldn't feel that at all. The only time I felt it a little bit was when it was being removed, which you would expect, but that was absolutely fine. And then I stepped down to a fentanyl patch, which is just the pain relieving patch on the top of your arm. That was absolutely fine. I can honestly say I was not in any discomfort at any point. Had very little loss from down below. And that just continues for a couple of weeks. You just get a little bit of discharge. If at any point you start to bleed really heavily, obviously that's time to head back to the hospital. But I can honestly say the two little portholes, did I have two little, see, I can't remember. It was either, 3 portholes on my tummy. One was inside the tummy button. So they just had dissolvable stitches in, which was fine. They all dissolved and healed really nicely. I just had to go and have just one stitch removed from my tummy button, but I've got a bit of a funny tummy button anyway, but that's a different story. So I just had to go and have that just removed, but that was absolutely fine. It wasn't painful at all. I had my mum, bless her, is such a love. She took some time off from work. She used some of her holidays, and basically was me for probably, I think, 4 weeks. So she looked after my 3 children. She ran the house. She fielded any business calls that were coming in, and she looked after me. And she was just the best nurse in the world. I am convinced that I recuperated so well because I was looked after so well in hospital and at home. She cooked, she cleaned, she made sure I was well fed and comfortable, and I literally just rested for that first month, just potted about, I spent quite a lot of time just sleeping and just basically recovering. But the biggest change is in my head. It is amazing. I feel like a different woman. I don't have the mood swings anymore. My cup is now half full rather than half empty. I just feel amazing. I've got my appetite back. I've got energy. I wake up in the morning like, yes, what am I doing today? I've got loads of energy. I don't have that full-on body ache anymore. I just feel like an absolutely different woman. And all those years that PMDD robbed me of having a life, it's just awful. There is not enough awareness out there. There needs to be far, far more. There is a wonderful, wonderful group on Facebook called PMDD UK, run by a lovely lady called Mary. It's an absolutely amazing group. Those girls carried me through those last few months while I was waiting for my surgery, at times when I felt so low that I just wanted to go to sleep and not wake up. And they carried me through some of those darkest hours. They were absolutely amazing. So if you're struggling at the moment, that's a really good group to have a look at on Facebook, PMDD UK. I've also just set up my own Facebook page called PMDD, Recovery, Ovary and Out. See what I did there? Ovary and Out. Where we're talking more specifically about having had PMDD and then going for surgery and how we're all recovering and feeling afterwards. There are other groups on Facebook about hysterectomy, which are really good for advice, general support, so that you don't have to feel alone while you're going through this journey. If you are heading towards hysterectomy for whatever reason, you don't have to feel like you're so on your own, because it is something that one, we don't like talking about because it's to do with female gynecology parts. People get embarrassed. It's like if you break your leg, you're like, people are like, oh, you've broken your leg, and give you loads of sympathy. How do you explain to people you feel like death for pretty much most of the month and it's your hormones that are to blame? People just sort of roll their eyes and think, yeah, whatever. But it is something that is really hard to live with. I hope to use my experience with it for positive things in the future. Maybe I can help other people through their PMDD journeys. I'm certainly hoping with the line of work that I'm in that I'm going to be able to support mums who have PMS, who are struggling with their hormones after having babies, and who don't feel like the GP supporting them. I think GPs, you've got it. Yeah, I think you're quite lucky if you get a GP who really does understand, who really takes you seriously. And there needs to be more awareness out there, and there are things like the National Association for Premenstrual Disorders. Not really. I didn't really join. You had to pay to join them, so I didn't. While I was unwell, I tended to find, I found free support in, through things like Facebook. Where there are closed groups like PMDD UK where you can go and chat to other people who are in the same boat as you, and hopefully you can support each other as you're going through that journey. Made some lovely friends on there who I hope will be friends for life, because we've had our surgery around about the same time, we're recovering in a similar manner, and I really hope that we do end up being friends for life, because it's a big chapter of your life that's that is now hopefully closed, and you're hopefully moving on to better things. But I've got to say, my head feels so much better. I do now take a very little teeny tiny weeny dose of HRT, which is keeping my mood nice and even. Now stepping down gradually on antidepressants that I was on before, because I was on venlafaxine. Now gone down from 150 to 75 milligrams. I'm seeing the GP next week, so I'm hoping to go down to the next, which is 37.5, I think. I'm quite happy to stay on dose if I feel like I need it. I don't have any problem at all with taking antidepressants. Some people really don't like taking them for whatever reason, the stigma, or I don't know, but I'm quite happy to take them if they work. What's the problem? But I will see if I can step down or even come off them, then all the better. But I'm quite happy, like I say, to take them if I really need to. So, I'm trying to, there are lots of things that need to be sort of looked at that have gone astray a little bit while I've been unwell, because certainly the last 12 months I was very, very unwell. Was just about functioning, really, to be honest, most of the time. And it's only now that I feel well that I can see how poorly I was, how unwell I was with PMDD. So there are things that need to be sorted out, relationships that need to be mended and rebuilt if they can be, because it does have an effect. I need to be thinking about rebuilding my business, because I own a franchise. So, you know, it's having that energy to put back into my business now, to start building up classes, which, to be honest, I started with one class in January. We're now in March. I'm now up to 4 classes a week, which is amazing, because I've now got that energy, I've got that drive, I've got that passion back for things that are important in my life. So, you know, I would do it again. I would do it again in a heartbeat. If anybody wants to speak to me, if they're going through the PMDD journey at the moment, have a look at my Facebook page, Jill Towers, or comment below on my YouTube channel, and I will have quite happily have a chat with you, and help to support you if that's what you need. Also, it would be really lovely to hear from other people who've had surgery and who are also, living life now, actually having a life, because you've got rid of your bloody ovaries. Don't get me wrong, they served me well in that they gave me 3 amazing, lovely, beautiful children, but oh my God, they certainly made up for it in other ways, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it. And if I see my surgeon again, I will give him the biggest kiss ever, because when I went back for my review appointment, I saw his registrar. But if I see him anywhere, I will be giving him the biggest kiss and hug ever, because he was a big part in helping to turn my life around and get rid of PMDD. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little chat about PMDD. If you want to know anything else, please do ask away. If you want to know anything about collarbone eye conditions, which is why this little guy's wobbling away, I didn't have the energy to put my lens in. I'm really sorry. I should have this in, but we're having a day off from it today because my eyes feel all dry and gritty. So that's why it's not in. But yeah, please comment below. It'd be really nice to hear from any other PMDD survivors, or anyone else that's going through PMDD problems at the moment. Anybody who wants advice about PMS. Been through it all, so I will try and help you any way I can. But yeah, that's my little video for today about PMDD. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again soon. Bye.